This is the liquidity narrative mapping for the week. This week commencing the 1st of March, the 2026. So in this week, we'll be looking at our four pairs for this week, which would be on NASDAQ, that is the USTEC 100, then the British Pound USD, the Euro USD, and the last pair will be on the British Pound JPY. And these four pairs will be starting mostly on the weekly because we are trying to see what the week will hold for us, where we are looking at price to get to or real to. So the first pair we were looking at this week, we are narrating on this week, it should be on the USTEC. As you can see, we are already on our weekly chart. And then in this particular narrative, we'll be drawing out the weekly range where we are looking at from, and then what our expectation the draw on liquidity is going to be, the area we expect price to draw to. So that's it, the premier and the discount levels. So starting on the USTEC, as you can see, we've already mapped out these lines. From here, the upside, that's the high of the weekly, and then using the low of the week, which is here, the 23,817, and then the highs, this particular to the 26,207 and 26,259 levels. So the whole of this area becomes our dealing range. We're looking at this area now. We've mapped out the highs and the lows. So everything we are looking at is what will happen within this internal range of this particular week. As of last week, the price ran into the order block on the weekly. So this is very important for us because we trade price action and not indicators. So as price ran into the premium side of the order block and reacted to it, this was the last week candle. So we've seen our weekly daily range. If we drop on the daily time frame, was our expectation where our draw on liquidity, what has happened when price ran into that weekly order block. So price got into the weekly order block and we had this particular level. Yes, we might still have some a little room here on this particular level for price to run to, but then our draw on liquidity will start to look for draw on liquidity at the lows. The question is, where is the money? Where do you think liquidity lies on? There is liquidity below here. So our draw on liquidity is here. We're looking at price to run to get to this zone. If it continues to go down, the next draw on liquidity will be here, which is the 24,384. We've seen the 24,605 level, then the 24,384 level, and if we continue more, then the 24,149 will be the next draw on liquidity. Remember this sequencing before structures before sequencing. So we are looking at those particular levels, but then we price to react to some level. Price might actually react to this level before going down, or the fair value gap on the 4H. These are the areas we want to see a reaction price if it didn't continue down immediately. But these are our draw on liquidity for the week on USTEC 100. That's the NASDAQ. So if we move to our next pair, which will be on British Pound USD. So this is British Pound USD. Also starting from the weekly, we've drawn the weekly dealing range that we'll be looking at price. Instead of using this whole level, we are going to cut it into two. We're going to be using this low on the week, which is the 1.33400 levels, and then the highs of this, which is the 3725 level, and then here. So our dealing range here, we are looking at this area first to see exactly what we are dealing with. Then we drop on the daily time frame. This is where we are on the daily time frame. Price actually ran up and then dropped down, but didn't clear these lows. So we are still expecting price to draw to these lows. The question is, where is the money? There is liquidity draw on this first low, that the 34.29 level, and then this particular level, which is the territory 94, and paraventure this level. This level is a fair value gap on the monthly. Yes, it was a fair value gap on, is a fair value gap on the monthly, and also a low on the weekly. So those areas becomes our draw on liquidity. But we've mapped out this particular fair value gap, which price might return to respect and fill on the weekly. And then if we look at the daily, also price might also run these highs to respect this fair value gap on the weekly, or probably get to this other block if it didn't continue to go down immediately. So let's keep our eyes on this level. They are very important, but our draw on liquidities remains the 34,300 levels and the territory 94, then before the 33, 37 level. There's that on the British pound USD for this week, or maybe as the week progresses, we keep our eyes on those level. That's it for British pound USD. Then we move next to our next pair, which is on the Euro USD. Also here on Euro USD, we are also starting from the weekly time frame, and our dealing range for Euro USD is this high at the 1928, and then this low between the 1577 level becomes our dealing range. So we are within this. One good thing about it is we can see where the price is. Price gets into the order block of the weekly also, but close a little bit inside that order block of the week. So the question is where our draw on liquidity is. It will drop on the daily time frame. This is the daily time frame where we are. Probably price might get a little bit up to this level, but our draw on liquidity is also on the old lows of the 1742, and then the next is this other block on the daily, which is the 1723 level, maybe before the 1668. But we keep our eyes on those level and see exactly what will happen on this particular level, as price might get back to this place to have a reaction or paraventure here. But our draw on liquidity remain on the downside. We are focusing more on getting those levels cleared, the downside of the market. That's what we are looking at, our narrative on the Euro USD. Then next we'll be dropping to our last pair for the week, which is also on the weekly, which is British pound JPY. We are starting on the weekly, as at last week price respected the fair value gap on the monthly, and this week we are looking at this dealing range, the highs and the lows of this particular area. So the price reacted to the order block on the upside, as you can see, as at last week price reacted to this order block. And if we drop on the daily time frame, this is where we are, where our draw on liquidity. Also, we are looking at price getting back to this order block on the daily, and this area where price consolidated for a while, price to return back to this order block. So we look for draw on 209.23 levels, and price before price may actually return back to this level or this level to clear this high and this level. So we keep our eyes on this level, this level, this level, and then this level. These are the areas our eyes should be on British pound JPY this week.